supportive attraction. Like, for
Mm.
example, like for a lot of guys, they like to be like more dominant in relationships. For example, they have this
Mm.
feeling of protection, like they want to protect somebody else. They want to protect, like, you get what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
this idea of protection and like wanting to be the more dominant person in a relationship. Um, I've made no secret that I would call myself like, it's getting a little personal. Call myself like a switch.
Hmm.
So I can basically go either way. Like if there's a larger, muscular man, I would not be afraid of being somewhat submissive in that relationship. And like the idea of them protecting me and them taking control in situations, that is an attractive concept to me, right?
Mm.
Um, there is also, of course, physical things uh, like gluteus maximus. I got to be very polite about it, politically correct about it, and rock hard abs, and certain long. I like guys with long hair and pretty eyes,
But
and
am I wrong in saying that you described yourself as bi in the past?
yeah, yeah.
So like do you so I guess this is kind of my question because
I am bisexual. I am
right.
bisexual.
Yeah, so my question is like so for instance like there's just like certain things about women that kind of will just, it'll just like flip a switch or whatever. So what I'm hearing is that you have, those switches for both genders, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Like for there's things that overlap that I like about men and women, like
Mhm.
personality traits and certain things. Like
Mhm.
for instance, you can call me an ass man all the way, right? In both on both ways. But but there's certain things that I like appreciate in men that I
Mm.
also appreciate in women, but some certain things I appreciate in men that I don't really appreciate in women.
Mm.
Um, I would assume for yeah. I mean,
No,
I
and,
guess
and and I'm not trying to get too.
when you're bisexual too, there is
Mhm.
this also this thing where like if those things, a lot of those things, most if 99% of those things overlap, when I think about it, I'd be
Mhm.
like, that's fine, right?
Mhm.
Like that's good for me. Like for instance, I like male what is considered male genitalia, but technically does not male. I like penises are cool, right? And on anybody that would be cool. If
Mm.
a woman had a penis, that would be perfectly fine to me in a
Hmm.
relationship
Nice.
because I like that, right? So if I like both, then that makes no difference to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fucking yeah, and that was just like something that I never clicked before. That was like, because a lot of these things feel instinctive, basically, right? Like you're just drawn to what you're drawn to. It's not something that you necessarily like emote or verbalize or anything like that. You're just kind of drawn to what you're drawn to. So that's what I was thinking about. That was kind of
Yeah.
interesting. Was like, I don't think I have that same switch, and so it's kind of weird, like kind of putting yourself in a box, I guess. But that's kind of like it's interesting to try to take my box and figure out how that works with other people's, conception of reality, how they react if they're walking down the street, they see a stranger that they think is attractive. What do they think? What do they feel? Like
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
I mean, for me, it was like it's a little different for me too because at first it was like certain type of guys I liked, but other types
Mm.
of guys it was not like that like into. Like the idea of somebody like that thing I talked about, like somebody protecting me, that
Hmm.
is something that took me a long time to like get my mind around because I have this huge thing about control, right?
Hmm.
Because in huge parts of my life, when I didn't have control, that was the worst parts of my life. When I was raped, or when my mother was homeless, or when I was uh, basically moved around my whole life, or any situation. When I didn't have control, bad things happened, right?
Yeah.
And it took a lot of growing for me personally for the idea of me giving control to somebody else in any situation,
Hmm.
to allow myself to relax, to be an attractive thing to me. And when that happened, is when I started to see actually larger men, more muscular individuals as actually attractive.
Hmm.
So I had to go through some personal like evolution and growth.
Yeah, no, that's kind of wild to think about too, because it's like that's actually like completely outside of my box. Like I don't even think that I've really conceptualized like not being in control. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not, and I say that because it's like you said, when you're not, bad things happen, and then to kind of like create that, like I'm actually wondering because my wife gets annoyed when I control everything. So maybe that's like it's initially attractive and then it can kind of become off-putting after a while. And like, if you're too domineering or dominant in a relationship, or you don't cede ground or compromise, where like and that's just like the negotiation of relationships. So I think that's really interesting to conceptualize from like a different angle. So
Yeah, it's I mean it's just I don't know. I don't know how to describe it.
Mhm.
Um, a feeling of safety, security that comes with it. It's hard to explain exactly what it is that you're attracted. But I guess it would be the same thing. Like, why do you like being in control in these situations? What is cool? What is attractive about the idea of being dominant in a sexual or emotional manner,
Mhm.
somewhat, right? Like it's like it's also pretty difficult to explain.
Well, and so how would you differentiate that? Because this is kind of interesting to me. How would you differentiate that, like in like fraternity? So like there's like fraternal bonds, brotherly bonds, like all that kind of stuff. So is there a part of your mind that like sections that off as like a different kind of attraction or emotion?
Sorry, I just had to. I was looking at a video and I had to scroll down quick. There was a in Minecraft video of it was like a battle in Syria, and it was like, oh, okay, this video it doesn't have a content warning. It should have had a content warning. Anyway, um, what was I saying? What were you saying?
Yeah, I was just asking. Is there a way that you like section off, like, so for instance, like I've experienced like fraternity or like brotherly love before or whatever.
Yeah.
So would you like,
Oh yeah.
would you
Oh yeah.
that
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
would you
There's
roll it into it? Would you separate it out? Like, how does
it
that?
is completely separate. Like for example, I
Mm,
have no emotional attraction to you whatsoever. Like
mm,
there's no interest. I have no interest in being with you in that manner. I consider it a professional relationship and we're friendly, right?
mm.
It's the same way that do you have like friends who are girls?
Yes and no.
Yes and
So
no.
yeah, so I mean, I kind of took a line for a really long time. I know this is very misogynist and thousands of me, but I kind of took a line that it's very difficult for men and women who are attracted to each other to be friends. So like, I don't have a lot of girl space friends, if any. Like that might be very I don't know, trad of me, but like I just don't.
I mean, I can. I mean, I guess you just kind of put people into different boxes of like this is a person I don't want. I even if I find so like if I find somebody who's attractive, right?
Mhm,
I can still not want to be with them for like personal emotional reasons, right? Like I'm in a
mhm,
relationship, I have no interest, or I just have no interest in being with this person. But there's also like the idea that I could put this person in a box of this is somebody in a professional relationship.
mhm.
I don't want to be with them in a sexual or romantic manner. Like you
Yeah,
would
yeah,
be,
yeah. Okay, all right.
and
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
great, right? Like there's no way in hell I would have any reason to be with you. But that got sounded really mean. Um, but it's just
It's all right.
where
I'm old. So
you're
the
you're very older than me. I'm
got
not.
got a bad hip.
I would like somebody who, I like men with good hips.
Mm.
Um, and
It's all right.
yeah,
I have a flat ass too. I'm not an ass man. So like that would be very disappointing. I'm very Irish in that
yeah.
sense. So but just so I can hold, basically maybe back up my credentials or whatever. Obviously, I have like coworkers and shit. I have people who are acquaintances. I have people that I'm friendly with that I'm not interested in a sexual manner. So if that's kind of what you were thrusting at, was like, do you have platonic relationships with people who you may or may not find attractive, and you can kind of box them into something that's not quite a relationship, and kind of have like a friendly bond that way, then I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but
Mhm.
um, how close can you get with these people?
Pretty close. I mean, I consider myself a good bullshitter, and I don't mean
Mhm.
that like manipulatively. I mean like when people have problems and they feel like they need to vent. I feel like I'm a person that can take on the venting of somebody else, turn it into a positive direction, or at least just be like a good net for somebody who's having a rough day. So oftentimes that builds familiarity and friendliness and trust and all that kind of stuff. If you're willing to be somebody's ear when they're having a
I,
rough day, even if you're
I
not.
I would I would say it's also easier with men because
Mm,
most men are not gay or bisexual.
mm.
So it's like easy for me to not put you in that box because it's like it's not even a possibility. It would literally just be a fantasy, right? It's easy for me not to put a lot of men in that box because I just know by default that's not going to happen, right?
So let me ask this question. So Dennis Prager kind of brought up the fact, believe it or not, Dennis Prager, but he brought up the fact that like most pre-Christian societies were like bisexual or something like that. So he actually saw heterosexuality as something like maybe innate and maybe natural, but also something that was like culturally enforced. So one of the I don't know, maybe the fears is of turning the frogs gay or something like that. Is like with the normalization of like bisexuality, homosexuality, and all that kind of stuff. Effectively, what's going to happen is people are going to become more promiscuous, polyamorous, homosexual, bisexual, all that kind of stuff. So do you actually think that there's these like really clear statistical lines in the population between like heterosexuality,
Maybe not. I
bisexuality,
think
and
I think it's I think
homosexuality?
it's pretty fluid, but I guess in the current society, it's a lot easier for me
Mm-hmm.
because like most people, that's just not currently how they define themselves or behave, right? So
Yeah.
I don't really need to really worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
But like if everything changes and like all the men are like, oh Dylan, please sleep with me, which I mean I understand
You'll
that
make some
some
accommodations.
then maybe I would adjust my theory, but I'm also I am not polyamorous. I am monogamous.
Mm.
I have no interest out doing anything really at this point of time, like adding anybody, like getting a third girl, third, second, any more amounts of girlfriends or boyfriends.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and I mean currently I'm with a woman too, so I mean,
Yeah, that was an interesting thing too. I had a friend named Evan who I worked with at Nordstrom of all places, and he was like, "I'm bisexual. I used to hook up with girls all the time." And I was like, "When's the last time you were with a chick?" And he was like, "15 years ago." And I was like, "I don't know, man. It seems like you might have
well,
changed teams."
that's the thing, right? For instance, like I do find men attractive, but if I'm in a committed relationship with a woman, then I obviously there's not much I can like go and practice that man. I will say though that I do partake in forms of media that are blatantly homosexual.
Hmm.
So I guess I don't feel like I have to present evidence to the court, right? But like for instance, like a lot of people don't know this about me. I'm actually a sucker for homosexual romance stories.
Mm.
I watch a lot of yaoi. I read a lot of stories, and I sometimes read comics.
Yeah. Well.
There's also Bara, which is specifically a gay media made by gay men. So
Hmm. Well, and that's kind of like the interesting thing that oftentimes I feel like we can actually rope this back to like PJW or whatever, and kind of like secular or not secular
wait.
Christian.
Somebody wanted me to ask you if you believe in ladder theory.
If I believe in what ladder theory,
Ladder theory
can you
is
TLDR
that
it for
all
me?
men gauge women on I would have sex with this woman or how likely is she to have sex with me scale. Women apparently have two ladders: potential sex partners and platonic partners, those she would never have sex with.
Okay, so give it to me one more time.
Men
Hmm.
gauge women on a I would have sex with the woman and how likely is she to have sex with me scale.
Hmm.
That all men do
Agreed.
this. Okay, so you believe in ladder theory. Okay.
Okay, and then women approach men with two different ladders.
Yeah, they have potential sex partners and platonic partners.
Yeah, and like I'm not, I don't know how much of that is cultural, right? Like I think, maybe people have been, I don't want to say indoctrinated, but just like raised in a culture in which, I don't know, men just consider any woman of any level of attractiveness who's not genetically related a potential sexual partner. But then,
Uh, I mean, there are women I would not sleep with.
of course, but that fits into the ladder of people you would or wouldn't, right? So a separate like platonic relationship tier or whatever, that I mean, I don't know, maybe that's part of like
Well, that I mean,
dismantling.
I would assume I have two ladders, right?
Hmm.
Because there's a ladder of people I just don't want to have sex with. Because if I
Hmm.
don't want to have sex with these people, then it's not because there's no percentage of my body that's saying yes, I want to sleep with the male lady or
Hmm.
whatever, right? The 45-year-old male lady, mother of two. I have no interest. I have no emotional, physical interest. I'm not to pick on any male women in chat. Um,
Maybe you're being too judgmental,
Being
Dylan.
judgmental. I'm just not interested in her. That's all. I don't know
I'm
her.
fucking around. Shit. But hold
But
on,
if we
somebody.
bring it back to Paul Joseph Watson,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So what I was going to say basically was that roping it back into PJW. So I feel like this is like a cultural norm that these people are playing into, and because I would say like I'm secular, it's not something that I've really been as like militant about, I guess. But if you were to look at like 80s, 90s, even the 90s, if you looked at the Democrat Party of the 90s, it was essentially like Christian. Like even Tipper Gore and Al Gore and the Clintons and all that kind of stuff. Like Christianity was a very like verbal part of like public and political life. So it was normal for like Christianity and Christian religion to be front and center. Now that we're 30, 40 years later and secularization has kind of taken hold, there's no real cultural reason for like gay romance not to be in public media. But then you have people who feel insulted that like gay relationships would be flaunted by movie trailers, or movies with gay romances, or that line in the Avengers where a dude said that he went on a date with another dude, or and they basically believe that it's cultural manipulation in order to make people increasingly secular. And I don't know if I disagree with that perception. I think the question is whether or not it's a good thing, right? Whether or not being afraid of homosexuality in public media is something that you should be alarmed about, or whether or not it's something that you should see as either neutral or positive. And I think that's where some of the disconnect is coming from.
So I will say that like I actually like slowly realized like when I was younger I was like representation like fuck off like just play as the video game character, it's like whatever.
Hmm.
But when I got older, like I slowly realized how important representation was. Mostly because I didn't, until Terry Crews, I never heard of a man ever like publicly being public about the fact that he was sexually assaulted before,
Hmm.
and that was like a big thing for me. And that would also apply to the fact that when I was younger, I only had like one gay medium, and that was yaoi animes, which are basically gay animes. But even those are like supposed to be directed towards women because women like watching gay people be gay. I don't know why, what
Like,
the science is behind that,
is
but
it is it male relationships, or is it
yeah,
female
it's
relationships, or is
it's
it
two
both?
men, it's two men,
Uh
right,
huh.
that are in a romance together,
Hmm.
but they fill these heteronormative roles of one's very dominant, one's more submissive, and
Hmm.
slowly fall in love in this like forbidden love, and it's targeted towards women.
Hmm.
That
What
was the only medium I had
I'm
access
assuming
to.
this is Japanese, but am I being bigoted in assuming that it's
It
Japanese?
it is it is Japanese.
No, I'm shocked. Nah, but that's so that's one of the things that I realized, because I did participate with Lauren Southern in a documentary that she shot, and I also kind of had some personal messages with her or whatever, and I was kind of wondering, it's like I don't think she's I mean, I don't want her to be pissy or whatever, but I don't think she's like an ethno nationalist. I think she's essentially become a Christian nationalist, and I actually think
Lauren
that's the
Southern.
way. What's that?
Lauren Southern.
Yeah. So
I don't keep up with Lauren.
yeah, but I think that's the shift on the right, is moving away from ethnicity and moving towards religion as like a centering principle. So
Um, I wish I could say that,
if you look at
but then what?
Mhm.
So why is there still such a big emphasis on immigration from South America when a lot of the people immigrating here are Catholic?
Because they're going to politically fuel Democrats. So like I'm not saying that there isn't a racial component, right? But what I am saying is that like you can use religious, like a religion as a core, and I'm mostly thinking about Groypers when I'm saying this out loud. But basically like so I would say that the alt right, even among dissident right circles, is largely seen as defunct. Like the Richard Spencer crew is kind of written off as no longer politically relevant.
I
And
would say Richard Spencer. There's certain Nick Fuentes, I think, is still politically relevant.
right.
A
And
100%, 100%, and I could tell you that because I was in DC and I saw his flags everywhere,
right. And
and that's
that's
scary as fuck.
and I think that's effectively the path forward, is kind of like, or for the far right, is being like religiously centered, and then like claiming some level of civic nationalism, but still being anti-immigration, still being anti mass immigration, still using Christian values or Catholic values as a cudgel to go after certain people. I think that's the next step for the dissident right.
They have what's the next step for this? I'm sorry, somebody sent me more shit on ladder theory.
Using religion as a cover, using
I
Christianity
mean,
specifically as a cover.
Christianity is still a big cover, but I mean, I, race is still like a big part of it. I mean,
Mhm.
it's hard for me to think that it won't be. I mean, shithole countries, the restriction of immigration from the South isn't just because it helps Democrats. I mean, well, of course, it helps
Well,
Democrats because of the race, partially because the racist idea that Mexicans are lazy immigrants that don't like take up all the money, but also take all the jobs away at the same time, and they're this kind of concept pushed on them, and not to mention the racist components that have been used to counter the Black Lives Matter movement, um,
Mhm.
1350, the like deal with your own like gun violence
No,
issue. Like there's
what I'm trying to say is that like with Richard Spencer, ethnocorporatism or ethnic identity was front and center. That was the movement, that was the message, that was the organizing principle, all that kind of stuff. I think going forward, basically Christianity is going to be the shield. It's going to be like the centering. It's going to be the centering movement through which they kind of push through all this shit, and that's going to be basically the organizing principle. Now, whether or not they're still going to have political advocacy for all these other things, they're going to use everything except for ethnicity as the reason why for why they have these policy objectives. So, with like anti-immigration from the South, it's not going to be, oh well, we just don't like brown people. It's going to be, oh, the drug cartels are so bad and they're bringing the
well,
drugs and
yeah,
the
but they've been
crime and
doing
the
that
blah 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 blah
forever,
blah
right?
blah
It's
blah.
it's always no, we don't. It's not that we don't like black people. It's
Mm.
that the race mixing is terrible for the kids,
But
and
I don't even
it's
think
always they'll
that's.
never openly say that it's because they don't like black people,
Well, yeah, but
right?
I don't even think. I almost think that like Nick Fuentes is probably too open with his like anti-miscegenation or whatever like
His
stuff.
his his Jew stuff
Yeah,
especially.
yeah. Like I
If you
don't.
had 6 million cookies,
Right. Like I
go
think
for
even
days.
he's going to be too edgy. But I think that's like effectively what he's trying to do is he's trying to shift the
I mean,
Overton window so it's no longer edgy.
it's weird. I mean, this is of course personal example, but I don't know, man. He seemed really popular when I was fucking there.
Hmm.
I saw so many of his flags there. They were literally passing me right by, and he of course makes speeches there. I mean, he's very active online, and I think the biggest reason why he's so popular is because he's playing to that community online, and
Hmm.
he's very tech savvy and young and zoomery, so he's able to play to an audience very
Well,
well.
and America First means a lot of things to a lot of different people, right? Like you can say America First without having like the explicit Groyper, code like injected into your DNA.
You give
But
plausible deniability.
right,
It creates an environment of racists and racist enablers.
right, yeah, and that's kind of where So, for instance, Nick Fuentes isn't a racist. He take look at this picture of three black guys that are part of the America First movement. Meanwhile, one of those guys was literally like on Twitter posting a picture of him like hugging a white girl, and like Nick Fuentes fucking like chewed his ass on Twitter or whatever. And it's like,
Or
Jesus Christ,
or
like,
we could just show like when he said happy MLK is a rapist anti-white piece of shit day. Or we could
yeah.
point to his Catboy date with Catboy Cammy, who goes on Omegle in blackface and an afro talking about how black people do all the shooty shoot or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's fucking brutal. But yeah, but anyway, that's just my theory on the writing on the
We just
wall.
got
I'm
a
not
story.
I'm not specifically committed
A
to it.
story just broke.
Hmm.
We just got a story.
Okay, cool. Go for it.
It's about one of your favorite politicians.
Okay.
Marjorie Taylor Greene mocked Parkland survivor in an unearthed video. An idiot who's trained like a dog about David Hogg. Holy fucking shit.
Wait, so the righty person is going after David Hogg again?
She had a video she recorded in 2019
Mm-hmm.
where she basically produced a video where she called a school shooting survivor a trained dog, basically.
Mm-hmm.
This is after she like personally followed him and denied a plane hit the Pentagon and all the QAnon fraudulent election, denied mass shootings in Las Vegas occurred or that they were done by like CIA ops or whatever the fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she is just so far off the wall. What do you think about the fact that she is a current elected official? She is currently in Congress.
Oh, you're gonna have to deal with that. This is actually what I'm talking about. So for instance, with like QAnon or whatever, it's the kernel of truth that actually makes it viable. So for instance, Jeffrey Epstein actually recruited underage prostitutes and had rich and powerful friends, including the Clintons and including Donald Trump. So that's the kernel of truth. But then that turns into pedogate, adrenochrome,
Hillary
fucking
Clinton sacrificed babies and fillets them, which she liked it, like a Facebook post saying that. This person's off the wall.
right. So even if you can cut away at all the off the wall shit, then you're still dealing with this core of truth, which is basically that, you know, sometimes rich people like to fuck underage prostitutes, and sometimes underage prostitutes are used as political blackmail for even American politicians. And part of the reason why Ghislaine or whatever, Ghislaine Maxwell, is probably not going to, well, I mean, like, I would love it if she made it all the way to court and also testified against a whole bunch of people. But part of the reason why we're probably just all going to forget that she even exists, and whatever convictions, like she catches 5 to 10 years and then she walks, is probably because there's some rich and powerful people who fucked underage prostitutes that she could talk about that she's not going to. And they're gonna sweeten the deal. And that's kind of where the truth is pretty fucked up, and the lies are more fucked up. And the problem with populism and the problem with demagoguery is basically just telling people what they want to hear, because you know that they in turn are going to give you power. And I think that's what Trump actually represents, is pure demagoguery, no attempts to root the world in truth or actual perspective. And I think people recognize how powerful that is. So I've said this once, I'll say it again. I don't think Trump is actually the problem. I think the smart, manipulative, optical Trump is the person you need to worry about, who's probably coming in the next 10 to 20 years.
Well, Trump was a problem. He was just a symptom of a wider disease of unattended issues that allowed people to be easily manipulated because they wanted an easy answer.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm really afraid about, because if you look at this, 20s, 30s, 40s, in the 20th century as well, effectively, like FDR, this is the way that it was pitched to me historically, is that FDR is the person who saved capitalism through redistributive economics. And the other two options were either fascism or socialism. And so basically, FDR, even though people hate him, is the person who created the social safety net that actually allowed us to avoid the calamities of socialism and fascism. But people have been chipping away at the social safety net for the past 100 years. And now we're back into a similar position of basically widely disparate economics between the working class, the middle class, and the upper class. And it's causing political tension because you have two options when your life sucks. Socialist revolution or fascism, and we've seen the country basically split down the middle on which way they want to go.
Which side are you on?
I'm a centrist.
No, that's not a choice.
No, I really do. I believe in mixed economy capitalism. I believe in the right to self-defense. I'm a constitutionalist. I'm a Republican in that I care about a republic. I haven't jumped on every progressive trend that I can think of in the culture war, but I try to understand it. I had somebody actually articulate to me that I'm a Burkean conservative, basically meaning that I'm skeptical of change, but I want to hear new arguments. And then if those arguments win me over, then I'm willing to go that way. But if there's something worth conserving, then I'm going to want to conserve it. And I think there's some things worth conserving, like capitalism, a strong work ethic, the right to self-defense, limited government, constitutionalism. There's a whole bunch of things in America that I want to conserve. We've
been canceled on Twitter.
Already? Yeah. I saw the group message, but I couldn't tell what he was saying. Is he saying?
Yeah. You mean the person who tweeted out with a picture of you on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm not about to leave the left, and I don't love Connor.
Yeah, I can explain it really quick, easy.
Please.
Easy peasy. I think it's just a mistranslation. Okay, I'm gonna bring it up on screen. Dude, I'm a scumbag, guys. We got to report. I'm about to leave the left, and I don't love Connor, but shit like this is not helpful. Add Dylan Burns. Y'all don't hate me for this. I don't know such as promise you. Okay, so the reason why is a picture of this with the description. Destroy my brain cells. Destroy My Brain Cells was the title of the stream when we were watching Paul Joseph Watson video, and it was, and later talking to conservative. And then I just combined the title because then we were talking about Paul Joseph Watson. I'm not saying Connor's destroying my brain cells. I said Paul Joseph Watson is destroying my brain cells. Okay? There you go. There's a clarification. Am I uncanceled, chat? Am I recanceled? Am I double canceled?
Okay, so Wait. So is he calling me a piece of shit or you a piece of shit? I can't tell.
I think he's calling me a piece of shit.
All right, that's fine.
Fuck you.
Hey, whatever. Right, you came at me with that ageist bullshit and said my beard was fucked up.
Now destroying my brain cells is in reference to you, okay?
Oh shit. No, but that's yeah, that's neither here nor there. I assume that like I haven't gotten like a full Twitter mob after me yet, so I'm still waiting for that day. So I don't know if you have any experience with that.
Okay. How do I make this title worse to piss off more people?
To known Christian nationalist counterpoints.
Am I pregnant? 1 second. Let's see. Just you know what? I'm gonna leave it the same. Fuck them.
Yeah. So, anyways, well, did you want to?
Dylan gets black pilled. What was that? What was you
Oh,
about to
I
say?
was saying, did you want to talk about any of the things that we actually messaged about, or did you just want to?
Sure. What thing do you want to bring up?
Well, I would actually have to check our DMs. Give me 1 second. So, can you play some hold music for our loving fans?
Sure. One moment. I'll play some hold music. 1 second. Let me figure something out. I'll actually I'll play my favorite song. I love this song. The song's a fucking bop.
Mm. Can your chat hear it, or do you?
Yeah, they can hear it.
Okay, all right, cool. I looked up the DM, but you can let them enjoy it.
Oh no, it's good. Okay, what is it?
Yeah, so I mean, we were just talking about so the things that we brought up, at least in DMs or whatever. I don't care. I'm perfectly fine talking about like the internet culture war and left right bullshit and where we identify and all that kind of stuff. So I don't really care where we go. But we were talking about or at least in DMs, we were talking about Myanmar. We were talking about American interventionism. We were talking about kind of like our role in the moral calculus of intervention. And that was kind of one of the things that I want to talk about, because actually the really interesting thing about the debate was we had like a pacifist interventionist who wanted to send like a Peace Corps of people to be observers in Myanmar. And I thought that was really interesting, but probably never going to happen. And then we had people who wanted to glass Myanmar. And then we had people who, basically like me, who's like a political realist who just thinks that America doesn't intervene in places that aren't economically or politically beneficial to us. So
I mean, my analysis was basically that we're not going to be able to get. I mean, as hunky dory is just due to the where Myanmar is, it's not going to happen. Due to their strong relationship with China, the economic corridor, the fact they're part of the Belt and Road Initiative, China's longstanding relationship with the military junta beforehand, the relationship with the military now. They had militaries with Suu Kyi 3 weeks ago, and right after had meetings with the military. So it's not like they don't know the chief of staff of the military. They had a very close relationship. And it's right on their border. And you think that China is going to be okay and pass a UN resolution to allow it, or not get involved and start a Korea War II electric boogaloo type situation on the border if we are about to have our troops in Myanmar and bring back the democracy and stop the genocide. You know what they're going to think? American military bases, our border. That's immediately what they're going to start thinking. Think about how much stuff they put up with when it comes to North Korea just because they don't want American military bases on the border of America. They put up with everything. Not to mention the fact that they stood up for Myanmar when on the genocide question.
Right.
Nothing's wrong here. And you want to know what they did in return? Xinjiang looks good to me.
Yeah, well, and that's where this is where I get frustrated when I'm talking to people who are very pro-America, and I'm going to name drop, like LSP a little bit, even if he's not pro-America. But they talk about like democracy and freedom and republics and like all that kind of bullshit, and like that's like I don't fight for that shit. Like we fight for fucking. Damn, are you laughing at me or chat?
No, somebody fucking did another tweet calling me out for the title.
Oh, okay. All right, well.
Sorry, continue.
Just anybody who's watching this, who's on Twitter or whatever, can you just clarify who you're calling an asshole, either me or Dylan? Like, you just need to be specific. That way I know whether...
This one's very specific. Dylan Burns being so rude to Counterpoints with this title.
Tell them that I'm into it.
Yeah, he likes humiliation. He likes
shit. Well, yeah. So anyways, that's kind of just the point, is that like basically American interventionism, while we will always dress it up in these like flowery political fucking reasons, democracy, freedom, all that kind of bullshit, it's ultimately about resources. Like that's what it is. And I hate to be so skeptical about it, but at the same time, like this is something that I brought up in the past, and I'll bring it up again. The reason why we knew Saddam Hussein had chemical weapons is because we fucking sold him the precursors for those chemical weapons. And we continued to sell him the fucking precursors while he was using them against civilians. So, like, we knew he had weapons of mass destruction because we provided them to him so he could survive the Iran-Iraq war. And the reason why we took him out is because he was fucking with Saudi. Dude, I can't deal with you fucking laughing. Like, I can't tell if it's chat or Twitter or memes or what.
I'm sorry.
No, I can't do serious geopolitical shit when you're enjoying chat. It's not happening.
People are bullying me on Twitter. That's all. Okay, continue. I'm sorry.
Okay, but I thought you were used to that.
Okay. Continue.
No, so I was just saying, like, the Riegel report, RIEGLE, the Riegel report is basically it's an American domestic, like, investigation or whatever into our export of dual use chemicals and dual use biological elements. And basically us, Germany, and I want to say the UK gave Iraq the precursors for, like, VX, ricin, anthrax, and I'm trying to think of what else, but I think those are the big ones anyways.
I'm very aware that we the West generally, I think Germany was involved, was very active with Saddam Hussein when it came to their situation, when it came to Iran and the conflict with them, us helping them out there. I'm very aware.
Yeah. So
I think our main role, though, was giving them information. We knew they had chemical weapons, and we continued to give them CIA information on, like, targets.
Right, and that's just my thrust, is that we didn't give a fuck about democracy. We don't care about, necessarily democracy in Saudi Arabia. Like, obviously, we want the countries to be stable enough that they don't get overthrown, but we care more about, like, stability than political function.
I think like most things, it's complicated, right? Because a lot of people, like, try to simplify the Middle East conflict into oil, and that's stupid. And I try not to do that. And I'll say the same thing here. It's a lot of interest at stake. It's international trade, it's international organizations, it is hard power, military strategic planning, and I do think also the public opinion also affects how we interact with the world. If the public opinion has turned against, for example, what strategic reason would Biden have for stopping our support for the Saudi war in Yemen?
Strategic. None.
So why the fuck did he pledge to do it?
Optics?
To get public... Exactly. Optics, public support. When it comes to human rights issues, the only way it will become of importance, this is the whole reason I started streaming, is if the public cares, right?
Yeah.
So we need to make the public care. And this is why, because there was a lobby of people who cared, including Congress people, because Congress people, I know it's hard to think, they do have feelings too. They have emotions too. They get into politics for certain reasons too. They didn't want that to happen. They don't want our continued support for that war because they're against our support for that war for humanitarian reasons.
So
right?
let me ask this.
That can have a real effect on our foreign policy.
Well, so let me ask this then, though, because this is all calculated in weeks, months, years, and the optics and rhetoric of politicians often seems to align with their actual policy objectives. So, for instance, it's one thing to come on the podium and say, it's terrible what's happening in Yemen. People are starving to death. It's terrible what Saudi Arabia is doing. We want them to stop. And then it's another thing to go into the boardroom with Saudi Arabia with is like, hey, I got a lot of people on my ass right now. This is just for optics or whatever. You keep doing what you need to do. And if you can break the Houthis in the next, like, 6 months to a year or whatever, then that's kind of where I'll start, like, ramping up the pressure for you guys to withdraw. But you guys can achieve your objectives first before we actually do anything. Like that's what I'm assuming is actually going on. Because there's no way Saudi Arabia, no matter how much they like us, they're not going to tolerate a Iranian sympathetic political organization in the Arabian Peninsula. Like, it's just not. I don't see that happening.
Well, the thing is, of course, they're going to work. Like, everybody balances different interests and different actors against each other to keep a coalition together. Biden's going to have to do the same thing when it comes to people who are less hawkish, who are his supporters. He's going to have to balance them against other interests, and those interests against him. But they're going to have to give something to them, hopefully. That's the idea. because he wants to keep their support. He wants to keep their support behind his administration, and that domestic support and international support as well, because other nations will get pressured on their relationship with us due to how we interact with nations around the world, right? If we go commit war crimes in some country, German protesters will protest, and that can affect what German politicians say and do, and that can affect what Germany says and do around the world, right?
Yeah. So
So,
let me.
so I mean, of course they're gonna do it to a certain extent. They're gonna because Biden understands the strategic interests at play with the Houthi rebels, Iranian proxy wars. He understands this, but he also understands that he's a politician and needs to get reelected, right?
Yeah, but let me ask this question because you were actually bringing up like European interests or whatever. So here's my thing. It's like what maybe this is just like frontline perspective or whatever, but oftentimes like the troops that were committed either to Afghanistan or Iraq, they were largely I maybe this is mean of me to say, but this was just my perception. Largely symbolic. Oftentimes did not leave the bases that they were stationed on, didn't patrol as aggressively, didn't like actually have any investment in what the war effort, I guess. And it was
Of
kind of more
course.
like a symbolic thing where they were just like sitting on the fucking base. That way they could say, these countries contributed people to the war effort, but then they effectively did nothing while they were over there. Now, maybe that's our fault because we're the ones who started the fucking beef. But at the same time, like, with allies like these, it's like, Jesus Christ, like, fuck. Like,
Yeah, multilateralism is important, but their participation in multilateralism is also important. But what I'm talking about here is, of course, people can try to do like compromises to get to they can try to compromise, or they can try to cut their support for humanitarian efforts in half and do like half deals, or try to do a fall like a fake type of yeah, we care about humanitarian issues.
mhm.
But of course, if the people don't fall for it, like if any other interest group doesn't fall for somebody falsely trying to appeal to their interests, then the pressure will keep up, and then eventually, the goal is to make them cave. One great
Well,
example of this would obviously be the Vietnam War, where
mhm.
one big reason why we stopped supporting it wasn't because we no longer had strategic concerns about domino theory, but holy shit, this is ungodly levels of unpopular. And David Cronkite went on TV and was like, "Shit, I don't think we can win this."
Yeah, so okay, hold on. So you were saying that we still had concerns about domino theory, but even though we had concerns about domino theory, it just didn't outweigh the need for public
Well,
support.
Nixon ran on ending the support for the war in Vietnam. He
Mm.
tried to hype up bombing in Cambodia and Laos for the idea that we can leave in a victorious fashion. That didn't end up working. David Cronkite went on TV, said, "Fuck, we're not going to win." Support caved even further, and it was just too politically suicidal to continue support for that
Okay,
war.
so let me ask you this then. So do you think that there's real because oftentimes it feels like American politics is on train tracks. That's what it feels like. Like oh, like Obama ran on basically like ending the wars, pulling us back, reducing American fucking involvement in the Middle East and North Africa. He, at least his rhetoric was pretty dovish. But then he got into the actual administration, and then he did withdraw combat troops from Iraq. But then that kind of created its own clusterfuck. So I guess my question is, do you think that there's actual differences of opinion between separate administrations? Like, so Bush was like, "Hey, don't pull out of Iraq too quick, or you're gonna shit the bed worse than it's already been shit." And Obama's like, "Hey, this is kind of like what I promised the American people, so I'm just gonna go ahead and withdraw anyways." Or do you think that it kind of is that like more coherent strategy, administration to administration?
Uh, you mean like, does each administration have the same interests, so but they do it in different manners because of public pressure, or they have different beliefs behind why they're doing it differently?
No, so for instance, like I'm asking if Bush pretty much like planned on leaving anyways. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he just didn't want to fucking say that shit because he would have to admit that he would shit the bed. But in like the back rooms of the Pentagon and the DoD,
No, I
they were
don't.
like,
I
"This
think
is a clusterfuck. Like, let's just get out."
I think there was legitimate disagreements. I think Bush did not really want to leave because
Mhm.
Bush wanted to make this thing work. He wanted to quote unquote win a mission. Like he wanted mission accomplished to be real. I
Right.
do believe that, and I have no reason to believe that his staff by the end of his presidency did not also want that, but have vastly different reasons for wanting that.
Okay, so let me ask
Yeah.
this question too, because this actually like cuts to the core of the right as well.
By the way,
Mm.
did you know that they were streaming Brian? Uh, I believe it's Signic's line in honor of the Capitol.
No. I'm not. See, here's my thing. So I am a YouTuber. For those of you who want to come and follow me, I am a YouTuber. I think of content and I post it. I don't have fucking. I don't get interrupted by fucking news breaks. I don't pay attention to what's going on Twitter. I don't give a fuck. Like it's like trying to hit a fucking moving target. Like it's hard as fuck.
Yeah, that's why I do both. I do it live and then I
Mm.
upload it on YouTube after the fact. When I figure because then I can pick and choose for my live stream what was the decent content.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's this asshole? Like,
Wait, what? Who's what asshole? What?
this asshole who's talking to her live streaming or whatever.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
1 second.
Well, let me know when I can ask my question.
You can ask your question at any point. What are you talking about?
Okay, so my question is: so for instance, you're close to these people. You actually have dealt with politicians, person to person.
Okay, let's be clear. We're talking about Bush and Cheney. I'm close with like county council members and state senators. Okay.
Yeah, but you
be
still,
realistic.
but this is my thing. What you see on the small scale can apply to the big scale. So, for instance, if somebody is making a public statement, and then they have to balance that with their reputation, and then they have to balance that with their reputation with their peers, and then they have to balance that with the actual policy objectives that they want to achieve, and then they have to balance that with the idealism that they originally had when they first got into the job, and then they have to balance that with what's pragmatically possible. That's politics, baby. So like that, that's why I'm asking about these things that are bigger tier. But my question is, so would your perception be dealing with even small level politicians? The thought on the far right and even the right is that there's a deep state. There's an agenda. There's a point to what we do interventionism wise. There's a point to what we do globally. It's a globalist capitalist agenda that we're all pushing forwards. So in those rooms, whether or not you're the figurehead, the elected official, or whatever, do you think like Obama shows up on the first day and the DOD and the CIA literally hand him like dockets and they're like, hey, we know that you have an agenda, but this has been our agenda for the past fucking 20 years. Here's all the points that we think need to be achieved, and here's why. Like, do you think those?
Well, I do think they brief him on like
Mm.
security issues and like what they previously have done, and
Mhm.
then they probably like, so do you want to keep doing this or do you want to do something different? And here's
Mhm.
some alternatives that possibly that have been written up by
So
David.
you don't think there's like a higher level like cabal or like organization of like
Like some pedophile thing or what?
yeah,
And
like
I don't like to use the word cabal, by the way, because it has some that's
nefarious implications. Yeah,
yes.
but what I'm trying to say is like so for instance, like if you literally had let's say we just had a president who was like purely isolationist, and he was like, I don't think American troops should be anywhere, and then basically I want all American troops home on my second day in office, and literally he shows up and he tells the DOD, I don't give a fuck how you get Americans home. I don't care what treaties we have. You are going to get, I'm the president, I'm the executive now. I
Like, could
want
they just say
all,
no?
yeah,
You
like
mean?
I want all American troops on planes to America in the next 72 hours.
I think that at some point that maybe there could be something if you get going too far. For
Mm-hmm.
example, like if you're literally like bring all the troops home, I'm gonna slash the budget literally by 90%. Like all of this, like eventually is gonna be like pushback somewhere. But the idea is that the other political parties would be the pushback,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's not gonna like the generals aren't gonna overthrow you or something like that, right?
Yeah, but
So
so do you think this is just momentum then? Do you think this is just like political momentum that we're already going in these directions? So like Obama just shows up, he gets his
well,
briefs, and
yeah,
he's like, like, all right.
political momentum, a lot of the people like cycling, the same people cycling in the same jobs, but
Mhm.
there is legitimate political disagreements on how to deal with these issues between presidents. And let's also remember, we've only been through 3 presidencies during
Mhm.
since we started the war on terror, right?
Yeah.
And let's think about that. The first one started it. The second one tried to withdraw from it but failed and then tried to manage it and kind of what you would usually expect a follow-up presidency to probably be like. And
Mhm.
then you got Trump, which was all over the place, going back and forth, either listening to the established powers or just completely bucking them and randomly pointing out in northeastern Syria,
Hmm.
which was completely against everyone's interests. That was completely unpredictable. And now we're on Biden, which was the vice president of the second guy, right?
Hmm.
So eh, these are all acting in manners that I would basically expect to be like exactly how the president, how exactly how their campaigns and how they are politically. They've all had like presidencies that would reflect that. For example,
Hmm.
Joe Biden doing the Iran deal is not at all something that George Bush would have done. It's not at
Okay,
all something
but
Donald
but
Trump would
let
have done.
me but let me show you let me tell you about something, and then you can tell me, basically what you feel about it. All right. So I want to say this was I would actually have to call and ask the person because they would remember when exactly it was. But basically, I want to say it was after the Trump presidency, and this person there's something called TAD. It's temporarily assigned duty. I think it's like only like 45 to 90 days or some shit like that. And what it does is it makes it so you're not on a deployment roster. You're technically like where your duty station is. So you're like, let's say that you're in Germany. You're still technically assigned to Germany. You're just on temporarily assigned duty to a different area. And this person that I know of was an officer at the time, and they were doing temporarily assigned duty over and over again between like Kuwait and Iraq, and they were like moving back and forth like every 3 months, despite being technically stationed in Germany and having their head count in Germany. So that's where I would say this would be not necessarily nefarious, but a question of competence, where people are kind of fudging the numbers because Trump was probably trying to do a complete withdrawal. Generals are like, that's a fucking horrible idea. How do we cook the numbers where it looks like
Well,
we're actually
the
withdrawing,
thing is, he
but
did do a withdrawal that led to an
Mhm.
expansion of the Syrian civil war, Turkish troops pushing in to northeastern Syria,
Mhm.
Turkish-backed militias pushing into northeastern Syria. It was so bad that during the invasion, politicians got dragged out of cars and shot. I
Mhm.
mean, whether or not you want to say, well, it wasn't a complete withdrawal because eventually he redeployed troops that were moved to Iraq and then moved back into northeastern Syria, it had a drastic impact to the amount of strength that the Syrian Democratic Forces had in northeastern Syria. It decreased stability. Anti-ISIS raid operations decreased by 75%. The president that it does have the executive office
Mhm.
does have a actual pretty decent impact
Yeah,
on
so I think
President
we're I
Obama.
think we're almost kind of fueling each other's points, but so you're basically saying that there probably isn't a man behind the curtain with fucking adrenochrome and fucking sex tapes on all of our politicians, and there
I mean,
probably is some level.
I don't know, but the thing is,
What's your
Trump.
instinct? What's your gut?
What's my gut?
Yeah.
If there's like a person who has it, there might be a few politicians, but I would say
So
no, no.
no, yeah, yeah. This is
I hope not.
effectively
I don't want to be involved in that shit.
no, but this is effectively what I'm asking is that like Obama, he had his agenda. Of course, like his agenda has to deal with like the real political practicalities of the office, the briefings that he's actually dealing with, the internal momentum of the global war on terror and all that kind of stuff. But there's not some dude like whispering in his ear like, "Hey," like, but except for like actual appointed officials. There's not some like higher level or deeper part of that, except for like institutional momentum and, like you said, kind of like the ins and out of DC, where it's just a whole bunch of fucking, it's consultants who become, political advisors, who become consultants, who become political advisors, who become consultants, who become political advisors, back and forth forever. I mean, you live in the fucking city, man. You're closer to this
I
shit than
mean,
I
like
am.
there are people who circle, but there's no people who add. People do change paths. I would say
Mm-hmm.
that there is an establishment type people, like people who've been in the business for so long. But
Mm-hmm.
this is true of every industry. This is true of every institution. That
Mm-hmm.
there's people who have been in and out of it for so long, so their ideas perpetuate because it's just been heard for so long. It's such common ideas. People can get sucked into it. People can also go there and shake shit up. Whether we like Trump or not, he did shake up a lot of our foreign policy beliefs. He did shake up and do stuff like negotiating with the Taliban, like he did, the huge withdrawals after the massive bombing campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just I would say that another thing would be, of course, is with his withdrawal from northeastern Syria. Obviously, neither of these things are good. What he did here, the massive bombing campaign in Afghanistan or the withdrawal from northeastern Syria, but that is examples of him doing it. He tried to go further in a lot of instances, but I would say it's hard for me to gauge if a lot of the reason why he didn't was incompetence or people undermining him. I think it was a combination of both. Like when he just randomly says like, "Hey, why don't we just invade Venezuela?" Like, was it him just forgetting about it, which sometimes he does. I've read that he'll forget about orders he gives and just never follows up on it. So if they just don't do shit, just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it
Do you know?
because
Do
then
you know
it'll
how
keep going.
terrifying that is? Like, it would almost be better if we had like a, you know, like a cabal of like deeply rooted people with like a well-oriented agenda. Like, it's almost worse that we're like just led by like senile dickheads and the whims of their like. Is that what the Trump
Well,
presidency exposed?
I do think there's institutions with people who kind of filter through and out, and I've been there forever. And
Mm,
a lot of them their job gets easier if they just listen to them and don't change course. And I think that is a lot of times what continues certain policies from going on. It's a lot easier if someone goes to you and it's like, here's the docket of
right.
stuff that we
Yeah.
would like you to do. Of course, you don't have to do it, but your job's a lot easier if you just pay attention to the other shit and just keep on this energy policy path.
Right. Yeah. And like isn't that maybe that explains some of the institutional inertia too, is like just like, you know,
Yeah, and
you have
that
executive
makes sense
administrations that have already
too,
been doing
right?
it for a while.
It
Yeah.
does make sense for administrations which have been running for years to say, "Hello, Mr. President, this is how we do things." That makes sense, right?
Right.
And it should be up to the president to say, well, is this broken? Because if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Like that makes
Right.
sense. But of course, it takes initiative for a president to do that. And when presidents have so many priorities going into administration, foreign policy being one of them, but not one that's particularly like of interest to a lot of voters, that's
Hmm.
another thing. You can do a lot of foreign policy stuff, and people just don't pay attention.
Yeah, that's actually like, so that's another question I guess, is like how much do you think this is only like internet nerds who give a fuck?
I think for foreign policy specifically, sadly, a lot of it I think is internet nerds. But
Mm,
I like only 2 to 3% vote primarily based on foreign policy. It depends if we're in a state of war or not. But I think the thing with foreign policy is it's really hit or miss because either nobody cares because it's a human rights issue, right?
mm,
Or uh, everybody cares because for whatever reason it hit the wind for a second, like with the Jamal Khashoggi assassination, right?
right.
People cared for a second, and then there's a third option where it actually affects domestic issues. So people care, but they don't know they care. And then they
Mm,
put it on other things. For
mm.
example, trade, where, oh God, it's really bad because it's immigration, da, 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 and I hate our economic state. And I'm like, we should have done all these different trade agreements. It would have been really helpful. But no, the real issue is this guy across the border to give his family a better life. That's the real issue.
Mm. No. This is actually, I
And the
appreciate
thing is,
this.
not even the internet cares about foreign policy. The way internet cares about foreign policy is like posting a meme that's like, when you find out the drone pilot is female that blew up the hospital, and then it's like a dancing monkey, right?
Right.
That's how the internet cares about foreign policy. It's not deep analysis.
Yeah, no, I actually no, I really appreciate this because I think it's putting it in perspective for me, because I literally Christ. So I would used to go into like my lunch break at Nordstrom, because I actually worked there and sold women's shoes, believe it or not. Um, Made some money. But basically, like, I would turn on CNN because it's like it's my fucking lunch break. I don't want to watch whatever bullshit's on TV. So I'd actually like watch some news, CNN, AP, whatever I could find as far as like news stuff. And then like literally like these fucking people, like most people would walk in and be like, "Who turned on the news?" And then they'd like flip it back to like the E News or fucking like Keeping Up with the Kardashians or some bullshit like that. And I just gotta realize like how alone I was. Like nobody else gave a fuck about any of that stuff. And
Yeah, let me put it this way. My government teacher, I told him a reason why I didn't want to vote for this one person in a primary because of their beliefs around foreign policy. And he looked at me and he said, "Nobody cares about foreign policy anyway, so I'm going to vote for them." And that's my fucking government teacher.
but
Not my government teacher, but a government teacher at my school that I said
but
that to. That's
maybe
fucking
but maybe
wild.
they're right. Maybe we're just a bunch of dorks screaming at the wind, like that's like I mean, I love being a dork screaming at the wind. That's my wheelhouse. Like I'm
I
I'm
I
completely okay
I
with that.
hate it, man. I wish I could just relax more, but I just can't.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Like,
but you wouldn't be the same person.
I wouldn't, but it'd also mean that I'd probably live about 10 to 20 more years.
Like, yeah, I think about that sometimes too. But I just dedicated myself to the concept that I'm gonna try to live until 2100 no matter what. I'm not saying it's gonna work out. I'm probably gonna die in like 2065, but I'm shooting for 2100, especially if they get like gene therapy out and all that kind of shit. So
I'd like to get to like, I would like to get to 100.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
especially if you're like still active or whatever, and they give you some human growth hormone in your 90s,
Uh, yeah, I think hopefully with advancing medicine, I'll be able to, get like bird legs or something. It'd be cool.
Fucking gene edited and shit. All right,
Hell yeah, man. What do you think
anybody's
of gene editing? What do you think about gene editing babies? What do you think about that?
like basically the movie Gattaca.
Like
I
the idea, like, oh, this baby is gonna be disabled. Let's not make it disabled.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm good with it. The only thing that I'm worried about is I would like them to perfect the technology. I know this is fucked up, but on like plant and animal experimentation, I would like them to figure it out as best they can before they move into humans, because I don't want them just creating fucked up humans for shits and giggles. But I actually have a person in my community, and he literally has a genetic disorder that basically makes him fucking like Master Chief. Like he just like he doesn't gain fat. He just has muscle. He has and it has no health side effects. So if somebody
Oh,
could,
that sounds horrible.
I know. Well, he has to eat like I think he said he has to eat 10,000 calories per day, which like again, pick your curse. But
That
the
actually does sound horrible.
yeah, hey, I'm still okay with it. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up real quick because it's a real thing, and I don't want people to think I'm bullshitting. Myostatin related muscle hypertrophy. Myostatin related
Get that in a
muscle.
vial?
What's that?
Can I get that in like a needle and inject it in myself?
Yeah, so I mean, if you got CRISPR up and running, like the gene editing therapy or whatever, I don't know if you could do that to an adult, but I know you could probably do it to a kid, and then basically you would have, I don't know if it affects height, but it definitely affects muscle mass, and it basically makes it so it's almost impossible for you to gain fat easily, and then like everything turns to muscle. So if you lift weights regularly and you have this genetic disorder, you're just going to be built like the fucking Rock for no reason, and you don't have to do steroids in order to get it. It's just a naturally
Dude, I could
occurring
have like
thing.
an easy career in wrestling, man. I could
Dude,
fucking like, yeah,
seriously.
I could be the one dude who's not fucking roided up,
Yeah.
and all I have to do is just practice my moves, and I'm good.
It would be because you had a genetic advantage that was given to you through gene editing. So yeah.
Yeah. What would be your wrestler name?
What would be my wrestler name?
What
Uh
would be your gimmick?
my gimmick. You're gonna have to give me a second. You're gonna have to talk to people about your name and
Uh,
gimmick.
my gimmick would be, I think the whole like, I think I'd have to be a heel. It's fun. It's fun. I like being a heel. I like the idea of me being literally just a coastal elitist, but like really playing into it. Like, you know how I have my robe and crown, really playing into that, like going into the ring, and I'd like bring an audience member in and I'd quiz them, and I'd be like, so what do you think about the Syrian conflict? I don't really understand. Of course you don't understand. You're a dirty pleb. This is why democracy's a failure. And like I'm just a hardcore heel in that manner.
All right, then. I think I'd have to, expecting the booze. I don't know if I'd be a heel or a hero, but I'd definitely be like, like the boomer Jordan Peterson, like the straight, like like I don't know, wear like a corduroy vests and like corduroy sweaters, and like just be like the professor. And, like,
Yeah, you'd be my enforcer, right? You'd be my, this guy's gonna teach you SJW beliefs.
I'm gonna teach you. Yeah, I'm gonna force you. Oh, I'm gonna re-educate you with critical race theory.
Yes, yeah, exactly. You're my enforcer. You're like the $1 Million Man, um, from the old wrestling days.
Um, I think I'm familiar just with the
Ted
memes about the
DiBiase.
movie.
Ted DiBiase, $1 Million Man.
No, no,
You're
no,
not. You don't know much about wrestling. Okay.
no. But I think I told you previously that when I was in my teenage years, I was like, oh, it's all fake, it's all bullshit. And then somebody kind of like opened my eyes on it, where it's like the physicality, the workouts, the routines, the aerobics, that's all real. So like even if the even if it's partially theater, the athleticism is real, and that's where I kind of came to appreciate it.
There's this wrestler called Damian Sandow that was always my favorite. A really good gimmick I liked a lot. His thing is exactly what I just described, and I realized it.
Mm.
Let me see if I can find a thing I can play on stream of Damian Sandow. It's such a good gimmick. And his theme was so good too. One second, Damian Sandow. Let's see if I can find um quiz. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, he's trying to find an apprentice. Oh, this is such a good gimmick. Okay, one second. Okay, you want me to share screens?
Yeah, if you can share it with me without fucking up chat, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, give me a second. Okay. Okay, I'm sharing screens now.
Cool. I can see watch stream.
Just
oh, do I need to click it?
Yeah, you gotta click it.
Oh, shit.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't. I like being nice to these peoples. They give me a living. They feed me. They donate and sub. By the way, there's a new cam donation if anybody wants to help with that. Full-time streamer. I'm almost at 1,000 subs. I don't know even how to comprehend these numbers I'm getting at now. It's
fucking I don't know if you want to say it on stream, but how much does that translate into like monthly or not monthly, but how much does a single sub turn into?
Well, let me put it this time. At this point, my stream stuff pays for 99% of all my expenses.
That's awesome. That's fucking awesome. Being able to, and that's the thing too. It's like I haven't really conceptualized that. That's one of the things I haven't come onto Twitch. I'm probably not going to come onto Twitch because I don't want to limit myself in the way that Twitch.
My territory, I understand.
Yeah. But even then too, just like jerking off a fucking audience. Like I don't know if I could do that. Although apparently there's a whole bunch of masochists that you're saying I can just talk shit to, and they're going to enjoy that too.
Yeah, chat likes to get bullied. I don't understand it.
But, yeah, but like no, but like this to me, this isn't a job. Like obviously it's work, it's time. It's time invested. It's time spent researching. It's time spent talking and arguing with people that you could be spending your time doing other more productive and more lucrative things. But it's fun and it's interesting and it's weird and like
it can be fun. I do enjoy this more than I enjoy my usual work, but that's also because I don't enjoy my how do I put it? I don't enjoy working. I don't. I got into what I work in because I feel like I have to. I feel like it's the morally right thing to do is to try to like help tackle these issues, right?
Well, do you do like IRL politics or whatever professionally, or do you do other stuff?
I mean, that's the goal. I mean, I work for a political PAC, right? So you got to think like that's somewhat professional. As of right now, and it's somewhat shaky because there was some financial troubles. I can't really get into, but I am the right now I am a financial director for a 2022 campaign. So I mean, I am. Yeah, I try to do this thing professionally. I'm on the city board. I mean, I want to run for office. So I mean, I have all intents and purposes is to do this professionally. I did professional politics before I did streaming politics, and in the back of my head is always the idea that I want to do real politics. That's my number one priority over all the streaming shit.
So are you gonna cut your hair, or are you just gonna slick it back?
Ponytail.
Okay. There you go. All right, cool. Well, so you can actually replicate that wrestler's look.
Until I get elected, and when I get elected, it's like now this thing is such a minor detail, nobody give a fuck. First impressions dealt with.
Well,
and then I'll be like, "Hey, tattoos," and just like, yeah.
Yeah. So are you gonna wait for the boomers to die, or are you trying to make moves now?
I'm making moves now. I might run for office by the end of this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. I always I use too much profanity, and like you said, like I don't think I'm a good rhetorician. Like I'm gonna tell people what to hear, say what I want to say. I don't know how that is politics.
Yeah. Well, I've had you for 2 hours now. Do you want to head out?
Yeah, actually, and then we might have hung out for 2 hours, but I recorded for an hour and 15 minutes. Is there anything in particular that I mean? I'm assuming you streamed it on your end, so there's nothing in particular that you wouldn't want to be posted, right?
No, that's all fine. I didn't say anything particularly objectable.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
cool.
I'm good.
All right, excellent.
I mean, I'm gonna cut out that section. Just don't cut out the section where I'm like, so let's debate incest and like make that whole video.
Yeah, the entire video is 7 seconds long, and it's just about.
Exactly. Ellen exposed his true intentions. Yeah.
All right, cool. And then, am I seeing you tomorrow with Joe?
Was it tomorrow? Or was it Thursday?
Shit, is tomorrow Wednesday?
Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday.
Oh, okay. Days from now, then. Yeah.
No, yep, it's Thursday. You and Joe.
All right, brother. Well, you be easy. Thanks for having me on. You mind if I shout myself out real quick?
Sure. Yeah, this is Mike from PA.
Do not follow Mike from PA in my name, you bitches in chat. So, my name is Connor. I run a YouTube channel called Counterpoints. Sometimes Dylan has me on. I would like to think that I'm a regular over at Prime's Reverie Roundtable on Mondays as well. And I do YouTube videos as well. So long form, short form, I talk about sci-fi, I talk about history, I talk about military and law enforcement. I did 4 years in the Marine Corps and 4 years in law enforcement. And I like to think that we have fun and talk about interesting shit. And I do take hate subscribers. So if you don't like any of the things that happened over the past hour or 2 hours, you feel free to still follow me so you can hate me. And the easiest way to do that, you can jump onto YouTube, type in Counterpoints, common spelling. I should be the first channel after a few Contra videos. And then also you can jump onto Twitter at Counterpoints, CONORPOINTS, CONORPOINTS. And if you come and follow me, then obviously my social clout will climb, and I will personally thank you for it.
Woo! So I know everybody that I usually do 6-hour streams, but today's gonna be 5 because I didn't do all my homework and I have 1 hour to turn it in before midnight. So I should probably end stream now. So Connor, you're gonna be here for the sending everybody over to Joe Lewis's stream, who you're gonna be with on Thursday. Who knows what he's talking about? Probably like destroying America or something. Who knows? With his evil lefty values. So we're gonna raid over there. I love Joe. Give him support. Thank you all for spending your day with me. This day was I had nothing planned for today. I thought of everything last second, and it was a great fun streaming day just doing singles content. I was super concerned when I started doing roundtables that you guys would hate my singles content because you would only be for the debates, but you guys have been super supportive. I really appreciate it. You all have a blessed day, and I'll see you all tomorrow on Wednesday at 6 p.m. EST, 3 p.m. PST. Love you all. See you later. And they're gone.
All right, cool, buddy.
Awesome.